Sonic the Hedgehog is the first game in the Sonic the Hedgehog series. I think. I think it's the first game in the Sonic the Hedgehog series. I mean, I know about that cameo and that one arcade racing game, but anyway, I think the main takeaway I came away from it was that the highs were not nearly as high as people say, but the lows were not as low either. And like, I didn't enjoy Starlight Zone as much as others, but I found Labyrinth Zone to be not the worst thing in the world. I'll explain. Also, I'm playing Sonic the Hedgehog Forever, in case you're curious. It's a fan-enhanced hack, or retooling of the mobile version of Sonic 1. It also adds, like, Tails, Knuckles, and a form of Amy, so if you've ever seen me play Tails, that's why. Sonic 1 is a lot more platforming focused than other games in the classic series, of which the classic games are more platforming focused than the other games of the Sonic series, so I guess the best way to describe it is that they play kind of like Mario games, but also a bit different. The games are still focused on trying to go as fast as possible, I believe. Well, it's usually in the form of, like, platforming rather than, say, activity traps and that sort of thing, which are more common to, say, Sonic 2. Either that or I'm thinking way too much about, like, Labyrinth Zone and Marble Zone. Because there's kind of, like, two kinds of Sonic stages in Sonic 1. There's the more speed-oriented stages, like Green Hill Zone, the Starlight Zone, kind of Spring Yard Zone. And you have your more platforming-oriented stages like Marble Zone and Labyrinth Zone. Labyrinth Zone of which we will get to, I assure you. And then Scrap Brain is kind of like a combination of the two, but I'd say it leans more towards the speed kind of gameplay. Spring Yard, Green Hill, and Starlight also incorporate a lot of the rolling physics, with like slopes and loops and such. I think a weakness of Green Hill is that there isn't a lot of platforming, honestly, which I guess is fine for the first stage in the game. You know, aside from the fact that they throw you directly into Marble Zone right after, which is very platforming oriented. I remember getting stuck a lot on Marble Zone as a kid, because, you know, when you're 6 years old, you're pretty bad at platformer games. Not to say Marble Zone is, like, that hard, but, you know, it doesn't help that there's 3 acts per zone in this game. Going zone by zone now, Green Hill Zone is kind of what you'd expect from the first level of a Sonic game. You know, there's like loops, there's multiple tiers of pathways, there's rolling physics and hidden goodies. I think a lot of people have gone over Green Hill Zone. You know, the stage is iconic for a reason, even if it does keep getting brought back over and over and over again. But that's not Sonic 1's fault. What is Sonic 1's fault is that, I guess, the zone is kind of boring to me. I mean, it's the first zone in the game, and it's the easiest, which I don't really like super easy stages, so I really don't have a lot to say about Green Hill Zone. On to Marble. Marble Zone is not good. Marble Zone's main issue is that you just wait a whole lot. You wait for spikes to go up and down, you wait for blocks to move across the lava, except you can actually skip all of these except, like, the second to last one. But the fact that you can't skip the second to last one is just, like, why? The stages are a lot common with Labyrinth Zone, which I'll talk about later, but basically the main difference between this zone and Labyrinth Zone is that Marble Zone is kind of really easy, which makes the zone not very fun. Don't get me wrong, there's quite a bit of good to Marble Zone. I like that the basic platforming encourages you to manage your momentum, so you don't go too fast to overshoot, but not so slow that you're moving, you know, slow. And the game does teach you here to, like, keep your momentum up in order to make certain jumps, since that's what you need to do to skip the block section in Marble. You know, except the last one. One fun thing I like is the last zone. In the last part, the last zone section, there is a part where, much like chemical plant, there's a little platform section that if you fail, you have to redo a previous section. I don't know, something about this kind of level design is funny to me. You know, make the player repeat a kind of annoying section, except this platforming section is pretty easy. You could also just wait on the block if you're feeling lame. Springyard Zone is what I'd call Potential Zone. This zone seems to try to do that multi-tiered pathway thing, but it doesn't quite get there. A lot of the pathways lead to, like, an invincibility monitor for some reason, which I guess is helpful, but I'd rather skip this really slow block-moving section that for some reason they wanted to recreate in Sonic Colors Game Land. On my recent playthrough of this zone, I've realized it's like a bunch of kind of cool stuff in Springyard Zone, but I don't think it really coalesces together much. Maybe I'd feel differently if I time attack the zone, but for now, it's it's got that potential. I appreciate that there's more platforming and timing than there is in Green Hill Zone. We're not going overboard like Marble and Labyrinth, but I feel like there should be some cooler stuff you can do to, I guess, skip the platforming like you can in other Sonic games. No one like the start of the stage, of the first stage, you just go over the wall, but I don't think that's like... feels like cheese to me. Feels like there's a lot of cheese in this zone, you know? And I don't really like completely cheesing stuff in Sonic the Hedgehog, because at a certain point you aren't really interacting with the level design, you're just kind of skipping it, you know? The boss of this zone is like the worst boss in the game, by the way. It's really, really not good. Like, you just wail on it, and then it dies. There's this one kind of notable section where I think you have to bounce in a buzz bomber to get across a little gap that you can't make on your own because of this slope. So it has that going for it. I guess this zone's better than Casino Night. Moving on. Hot take, Labyrinth Zone good. Labyrinth Zone is definitely not what you'd think of when you think of Sonic the Hedgehog stage. It's the far end of being platforming focused with barely any typical Sonic-esque speed sections. Didn't stop me from getting preservely trapped. But if you think about outside of the context of it being a Sonic game, I think Labyrinth Zone is actually a pretty good platforming stage. The main problem is that it's just slow because you're in the water, and also the bubbles kind of take forever to come out sometimes. They also plastered bubbles everywhere. It's like they knew the stage is hard, but they didn't know how to nerf the stage without just doing that. I think the main claim to fame for Labyrinth Zone is its difficulty. Marble Zone had a similar idea. It was just way too easy for me to care. With Labyrinth, there's enough tricks and traps to actively keep you on your toes. I guess the slow pace of the water also helps you get into that sort of kind of standard platforming mood that Labyrinth wants you to be in. Whenever I think of Labyrinth platforming, I always think of the rotating spiked balls, which are a very classic timing challenge. They're not, like, hard by any means. I appreciate when a Sonic game makes me stop and think about how to proceed, kinda. Also, I don't think these, like, mole enemies, these mole Ed-Brand robots, they're not, like, passivity traps, they're more so, are you actually paying attention traps? Of which there's a lot of in Labyrinth Zone. The funniest one by far is definitely beneath, like, beneath the spikes, there's often a platform that rises up and usually crushes you to death. I think making it an instant kill might have been a bit much. No, it was definitely a bit much. Honestly, I have less to talk about with Labyrinth Zone than I thought. It's just kind of a good platforming stage, even if it is very, very slow. Starlight is just kind of boring, to be honest. It feels like this game's Sky Chase Zone, but... I mean, Sky Chase wasn't very fun either. And granted, Starlight Zone is leagues more fun than Sky Chase Zone. Sky Chase is... Let's just move back to Starlight. Starlight is very much the Green Hill 2 of this game. But I honestly think it might be worse than Green Hill. Granted, I don't have a lot of experience with Starlight, but... I feel like Starlight revolves too much around passivity traps. I've heard Sonic Advance 2's level design is a lot like this. So I guess if you like Starlight Zone, then you might like Sonic Advance 2 for the Game Boy Advance. But yeah, I'm mostly just kind of bored while going through Starlight. There really isn't much to say about it. And what there is to say about it is not great. Like, these seesaws with the spiked balls are kind of annoying. I mean, they're not the most annoying things in the world, but they're annoying. These invincible bombs are also kind of annoying. Like, I get it, they're traps, but... I think the gates that move when you touch them are pretty cool, since you have to find a way to touch the gates. So they lower and you can get to a higher route. That's neat. That's Sonic-y. Also, I think it does a good job of, like, doing the triple-tiered pathways. Honestly, I think my biggest issue with the zone is that I just think it's too easy. And there isn't really much there to keep me engaged, honestly. Wish I had more to say about it. I guess I have, like, a major skill issue with the boss. Because I feel like every time I try to beat the boss quickly, it doesn't, like, work. Moving on to the good zone. Now this is peak Sonic 1. Well, it's peak Sonic 1 except for the part where you have, like, these things they have to wait again that are also in Game Land from Sonic Colors, because that mode couldn't, like, get any worse. I don't know what I'm saying. In a way, Scrap Brain feels like it takes the best parts of the platforming from Labyrinth Zone and combines it with the multi-tiered stuff from Springyard Zone into probably the best level in the entire game. Or the best two levels, the best zone in the game. I guess the difficulty jump is pretty severe from Starlight to Scrap Brain, but you have rings. And the rings can get you through this zone. It's kind of like a Kirby thing where, like, it's pretty easy to beat, but if you want to get through it quickly and efficiently, you really need to up your game. This level kind of feels the most like a traditional Sonic level, but it has that Sonic 1 platformer-y flair, if you know what I mean. I know a lot of people think of Green Hill as like the prototypical Sonic level, but I always think Scrap Brain embodies that spirit more. Maybe it's just because, like, Green Hill Zone is too easy. I guess it's not all a winner. There are still some kind of slow sections, but like any good Sonic game, you can skip these sections with good play. You know, keeping to the top path means that you get to avoid these slow sections, and they're kind of your punishment for falling down to the bottom path. You know, like a Sonic game. I think that's what Scrap Brain does the best. There's no shortages of traps to try sending you to a slower route, so dealing with all of them and getting through them feels really good. I guess maybe they rely too much on passivity traps with, like, the disappearing red floors, but it's like you're going slow enough that you can usually predict them. And, like, there's so many traps in the stage already that you're going to be going slow by default. Because you never know when you're going to run into, like, an electric pole thingy. Also, the gimmick of Act 2 with the spinny orb things is pretty fun, if a bit unwieldy. You know, it's a shame, I don't hear all that much talk about Scrap Brain Zone, despite honestly being a really, really good zone in my opinion. There's much more talk about, like, Green Hill and that. I guess the zone is just too hard for some people, and I guess the extreme difficulty can turn a lot of people off from it. It's a similar issue with Metropolis Zone, though. I think Metropolis handles the, like, multi-tiered pathway worse than Scrap Brain. Actually, I think, like, this zone holds the title of the best final zone in the series. I mean, think about it. Like, Metropolis is good, but it's not, like, super duper good, especially compared to the other Sonic 2 stages, and Wing Fortress is just really bizarre. I don't think Death Egg is particularly good because of all the, like, twisty, turny gimmicks. I guess Egg Reverie Zone was pretty good, but it wasn't, like, it was kind of gimmicky. I remember the final zone of Sonic Superstars being pretty good. And I guess Launch Base is a pretty great zone too, so I guess it's either between this zone or Launch Base zone, or the Superstars one maybe. But I am waffling. Maybe I should do like a complete breakdown of the zone one day, but for now I think that's enough. Alright, I forgot. This zone is maybe a little bit too much like the new Sonic games, because this zone doesn't actually have 3 acts. It only has 2, and the last act is actually Labyrinth Zone again, but significantly worse Labyrinth Zone. It's weird. I mean, I think the regular route of Labyrinth Zone is pretty good, but there's actually a secret route to Labyrinth Zone if you're, like, quick enough, where you can basically skip the entire stage. But it gets weirder, because when I tried to skip the entire stage, I couldn't find the way to go to skip the whole stage. I just did a different route to the main stage, which, like, sure. So, you know, very, like, guidebook-y, if you know what I mean. Also, I swear, like, the alternate route is significantly worse of an experience than the main route of Labyrinth 4. So, anyway, the final boss. The main props I have to the final boss is that it isn't completely, like, stupid, like Death Egg Robot. Death Egg Robot is, like, the hitboxes. He's 5 hitbox McGee. I think Sonic 1's boss is, like, completely fair. It's a bit of a boring boss, but I guess I'd rather take that over than taking my chances with hitbox shenanigans. And one final bonk to Eggman, and then you've beaten the game. Cool. And you don't have to bonk Eggman. I don't think you actually like beat Eggman on my first playthrough of this game, because I'm bad at it. But to get the true ending, the best ending, you have to go with the Chaos Emeralds, and they're not very good, these special stages. But it's weird, because, like, these special stages have reappeared, and I've heard they're, like, pretty decent in Sonic 4. And I played them in Superstars, they're actually quite fun in Superstars. So I'm not sure what about the ones in, like, Sonic 1 make them not fun. It might just be the controls are way looser than they are in Superstars. So I always felt like I had a good control myself in Superstars, but not so much in Sonic 1. Forever also has the option to add smooth rotation, so maybe that's it, but I don't know. It's not that the Chaos Emeralds give you anything anyway, they just give you the best ending because Super Sonic doesn't exist yet. Also, I can't figure out if getting 50 coins... if getting 50 coins is good enough to, like... So if getting 50 coins is, like, fun or kind of annoying. I appreciate the game for, like, encouraging you to take it slow and not use your rings, but you don't really get that many chances at the special stages, and the special stages are kinda not very good anyway, so... yeah. and you don't get anything. So that's Sonic 1. A pretty good game, all things considered. I mean, you've had like 3 decades to figure it out. 3 good decades to figure out if Sonic 1 is a good video game or not. If you've like passed up on Sonic 1 because you've heard it's not very good, I would recommend giving it a try. Just maybe consider slowing down a little, okay? Okay. Also, be inquisitive. Sonic 1 thrives a lot on players asking what if they did this, or if they can do something to get through a section quicker. Which I think is this series' main evolution from Mario, because in the Mario games it's often obvious what you can do to get faster. You just jump over the guy quicker, running at full speed. Pretty rare that there's opportunities where you have to ask, can I do this? Or even like, how do I do this? Also, if you do want to time hack Sonic 1, the Forever version is the way to go. It might do this sort of thing for the other Sonic games, but we'll have to see. Goodbye for now. This has been Mimi,